Okay. The Omnibus bill looks like it's on its way toward passage. Negotiators are having some good luck on that one. And we now know that the President and Senate Democratic leadership are working to hold that one up until the payroll tax gets done. But of course that has some peril too. If the Omnibus doesn't get done and there's no CR, then we have a government shutdown. Is the President willing to take that risk? Well, you talk about the consequences if the payroll tax isn't extended, but there are also enormous consequences for the country. We should get to the brink of a shutdown. I know you say there's time to do both, but is it responsible to even bring that into the conversation?
Jake, then I'll go to that. Yeah.
First one, congratulations on the 3 Pinocchios from the Washington Post fact check.
We obviously disagree with that. Thank you.
First one, congratulations on the 3 Pinocchios from the Washington Post fact check.
We obviously disagree with that. Thank you.
So how is this reluctance to bring up the spending bills, how is that any different from the brinksmanship that the President and the White House have decried in the past? The President wants an objective, and he's holding back another piece of legislation in order to achieve his objective. The question is it not the same? Is it not the same kind of ploy? Republicans and Democratic staffers with whom I've spoken have said this was actually like a really bipartisan achievement. There was a handshake from the Senate Democratic Chief of Staff and the House Republican Chief of Staff, and this was a bipartisan accomplishment. And now the President's standing in its way because he wants something else. And it's the same kind of brinksmanship. You guys, I'm not sure if you were at this podium at the time or not, but there was a lot of talk of holding things hostage. Republicans were holding legislation hostage.
I think it's tempting not to negotiate with hostage takers.
I'm not sure if you were at this podium at the time or not, but there was a lot of talk of holding things hostage. Republicans were holding legislation hostage. I guess you were here. And I'm wondering, is that not exactly the same thing that you're doing?
Again, this is an example you asked me earlier of what I reflect on. I reflect on the fact that part of my promise to the American people when I was elected was to maintain the kind of tone that says we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think over the course of 2 years there have been times where I've slipped on that commitment. And that's something that I've got to make sure that I'm checking on an ongoing basis, making sure that my rhetoric matches up with my expectations for myself. I think it's tempting not to negotiate with hostage takers. What's still fair to say is that I can do better than I've done in painting a picture for people about where we need to go that pulls people together as opposed to drives them apart. And that's one of my central tasks over the next couple of years.
Mike.
Thanks, Jake. 2 quick issues following up on what Jake was asking about earlier on the linkage with the payroll tax and the budget. The President said that he would reject any effort to link the payroll tax to extraneous issues, but doesn't this contradict that by essentially linking the payroll tax cut to everything in the budget? The second issue also on payroll tax. The administration has contended that the Republican pay-fors would cut education. Republicans say there's nothing in their proposal that would...
No, it's very cleverly written to prevent that from being obvious.
When the Washington Post fact check has agreed with them, does the administration stand by that?
Nora.
Simple question. When the President called Senator Reid, what did he ask him to do?
I don't have a word-for-word readout for you. They discussed, obviously, tax cut extension, the extension of unemployment insurance, need to the Americans who need it.
That he instruct Democrats not to sign.
The President made clear that extended. So, I mean, we're being very...
Whether the President, it was the President's directive.
The President and
Senator Reid to tell Democrats not to sign.
Senator Reid's action.
Say what the President asked Senator Reid to do.
I think, Dan, I said I'd call on you.
Speaking to supporters this morning at the National Finance Committee meeting, the President repeated a theme that we've heard quite often, and that is that he understands the frustration of Americans who can't find jobs and can't stay in their homes. At what point does feeling your pain get a little old. I mean, what else does the president have to offer to Americans to get, to convince them that he deserves another term? But the deep whole narrative, though, is getting old for a lot of people who still have not been able to get work and still can't hang on to their homes. One quick question on Iraq. Yesterday there was talk from the president and the prime minister that Iraq was ready to handle its own security, and yet over the last 24 hours we've seen, continued violence. Is the White House, is the administration being overly optimistic that in fact Iraq will be prepared to handle its security once U.S. troops pull out by the end of the year?
Yes, Ed, and then I'll go to Jared. Yeah.
Just want to follow on the budget. You told Jake before that the budget bill has not even been filed yet, so Republicans are wrong because the budget bill has not been filed yet. But then when Nora asked you about the president's conversation with Senator Reid, you're basically saying they didn't want to move forward on this because they wanted to wait and get the payroll thing done first. So, in fact, how can you tell Jake that the bill hasn't been filed yet when it's the president and Senator Reid who didn't want the bill filed? It's not the Republicans, it's not that they stopped it.
There's not a bill. What I said to Jake is absolutely true.
The Appropriations Chairman says there is, and that you're holding it hostage.
Is the bill filed?
He said he was ready to file it, but it was stopped. I know. He was ready to file it, but the Democrats wouldn't sign the contract.
The president has no concerns about information gleaned from the drone, either internal data or data based on analysis of the physical drone.
Well, as you know, I won't get into intelligence matters, but I can tell you that we're highly confident in our own unique capabilities. So, just to reiterate, we're very confident in our own unique capabilities, and we'll leave it at that.
What does that mean?
Okay.
Unique capabilities?
Well, it was in response.
Jay, you just said that the president will continue to talk with like-minded people. Some of the problem is the fact that he keeps talking to people like-minded and not reaching into that group that's not thinking like him. What are the conversations within this building about how a conversation should take place with the other side to make this happen before the end of the year? I want to go back to the past things as an example. When he was trying to get health care reform through, many people on the Hill were saying he needed to put his shoulder in, he needed to put skin in the game. He needed to come because this was what he wanted. There's a difference between legislators and the President of the United States. So if he were to actually, and it's beyond a media theatrics or whatever you're trying to say, beyond a media theatrics or whatever you're trying to say, beyond a media theatrics or whatever you're trying to say, for the President to actually talk to the political opposition on middle-class taxes, that's a big deal. Beyond a media theatrics or whatever you're trying to say, beyond a media theatrics or whatever you're trying to say, for the President to actually talk to the political opposition on middle-class taxes, that's a big deal.